Okay, picture this for a second.
Yeah.
You are standing in the middle of a museum. You've walked through the main gallery, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the pristine marble statues, the oil paintings that are varnished to perfection,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the stuff that's protected behind velvet ropes.
It's all beautiful. It's complete. It's perfect.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
the finished product, the masterpiece presented to the public.
Right.
But then a guide waves you over. They unlock this heavy, dusty door in the back, and they lead you down a corridor into the artist's workshop.
Okay.
And suddenly, the vibe just completely changes. The air smells like sawdust and turpentine. You see sketches crumpled up on the floor.
Yeah, tools left out on a workbench.
Exactly. You see a statue that's half carved where the artist clearly got frustrated and maybe chipped off the nose or, you know, just changed their mind and walked away.
That is a very, very evocative setting. And for a certain type of person, I think that workshop is infinitely more interesting than the gallery.
That is exactly where we are going today. We are not looking at the polished, finished masterpiece of The Lord of the Rings.
No.
We are unlocking the workshop of J.R.R. Tolkien. We're digging into the messy, contradictory, and absolutely fascinating collection known as Unfinished Tales of Númenor and Middle-earth.
It's a book that I think intimidates a lot of people. The title alone, Unfinished Tales, it just sounds like you're going to be reading broken fragments.
Totally. Scraps from the cutting room floor.
Right, like here's a paragraph you wrote on a napkin.
Yeah.
Precisely. But if you can push past that assumption, you find something that I think arguably more profound understanding than even the main.
And to guide us through this literary archaeological dig, we're looking at a really thorough review and analysis by fantasy author John Delarose. He recently did a deep dive into this book.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, he picked up this massive leather-bound Easton Press edition. And his whole takeaway was really interesting.
What was his angle?
He basically said, look, I've seen the movies, I've read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, but I want the deep lore. I want to know how the sausage is made.
And that is such a common trajectory for fans, isn't it? You finish The Return of the King, you wipe the tears from your eyes, and then you have this moment of just like panic.
Laughing.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is it over?
Is it over? You want to stay in that world so badly.
But then you hit the cliff.
Oh, the Silmarillion cliff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
You buy the Silmarillion, you open page 1, and it reads like the Old Testament combined with a history textbook written by like an ancient, slightly boring elf.
It is so dense. I mean, the language is archaic. It's all about the movement of nations and the genealogy of immortal beings. It's just very hard to connect with on a character level for a lot of people.
So our mission today is to show you that Unfinished Tales is the bridge, the missing link between the casual fan who, you know, watches the extended editions once a year and the hardcore scholar who speaks fluent Quenya.
It really is. And I think it's worth dwelling on that physical aspect you mentioned earlier, the Easton Press.
Oh, right.
Delarose talks about the experience of holding this heavy, leather-bound book with the gold inlay.
It sounds a little fancy. Is that just him showing off?
You know, I don't think so. I think he's touching on the concept of gravitas.
Gravitas.
Yeah. When you read a paperback on the bus, it feels like entertainment, right? But when you sit down with a heavy leather-bound tome that looks like it belongs in a wizard's tower,
It changes your mindset.
it totally changes your mindset. You treat the text with more reverence. You feel like you're consulting an artifact.
Which is fitting because this book literally is an artifact. It wasn't even published during Tolkien's lifetime, was it?
No, it came out in 1980. J.R.R. Tolkien died in 1973. So this book is a completely posthumous collection.
Okay, so let's unpack what this actually, because Tolkien didn't sit down and write a book called Unfinished Tales.
Not at all. Correct. Tolkien left behind a mountain of papers. I mean, we are talking about manuscripts, notes scribbled on the backs of exams he was grading.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. Timelines that didn't match up, stories that just stopped mid-sentence. His son, Christopher Tolkien, he became the literary executor, and he had this monumental task of just sorting through this archive.
And this is where that archaeology comparison really clicks, because Christopher Tolkien had two choices, right? He could have done what he did with the Silmarillion.
Exactly. With the Silmarillion, Christopher tried to be an editor and a weaver. He took all these disparate texts and he tried to stitch them together into a single cohesive narrative.
He smoothed over the cracks.
He smoothed over the crack. He made choices about which version of a story was the true one. He tried to present a finished product.
But with Unfinished Tales, he took a totally different approach.
He decided to show his work. He adopted an editorial philosophy that was completely Instead of hiding the crack, highlighted them.
So you're reading a story and it just stops.
It stopped. And then you'll get a little footnote or a chapter break with a note from Christopher saying, here, my father's manuscript breaks off.
Wow.
And then he'll say something like, in a sketch from 5 years earlier, the character went to the mountains, but in a later note, he decided the character should go to the sea instead.
Okay, play devil's advocate here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that good? That sounds incredibly frustrating. I want a story. I don't want to choose your own adventure that's broken.
It really depends on what you're looking for. If you just want a polished novel, yes, it can be jarring. But if you want to understand Middle-earth as a world, it is brilliant.
No,
Because it shows that Middle-earth wasn't static. It wasn't this perfect thing that Tolkien just downloaded from the ether. It was a living mythology. It was constantly evolving and changing in his own mind.
It feels more like real history that way.
That's it. Real history is full of conflicting sources. Historian A says the general went left. Historian B says he went right.
Right, and you have to sort of piece it together.
By leaving the contradictions in, Christopher Tolkien accidentally made Middle-earth feel more like a real place with a complex, debated history rather than just a simple...
That is a really cool way to frame it. You aren't just a reader anymore. You're a historian trying to piece it all together.
You're participating in the creation of the lore in a way.
Okay, so let's get into the actual dirt of this dig site. The book is divided into sections based on the 3 ages of Middle-earth. And I think we should probably focus heavily on the 2nd and 3rd ages today because that's where the most accessible, the most juicy stuff.
A very wise. The first age section, well, it's the deep end of...
We'll dip a toe in later. But let's start with the 2nd age, which right now, thanks to TV shows and pop culture, the 2nd age is a hot top. But in the original books, it was basically just a footnote, wasn't it?
It was. It was just, Númenor was great, they got proud, Sauron tricked them, the island sank, the end. That was pretty...
It was a bridge period, sort of dark age between the mythology of the 1st age and the War of the Ring in the 3rd.
Absolutely.
But in Unfinished Tales, we get a story called Aldarion and Erendis, the Mariner's Wife.
Yeah.
And when I read the summary of this, I had to double check that it was actually Tolkien.
It's remarkably different from his usual tone. It's really something else.
There are no wizards, no magic rings, no dark lords in scary armor, no epic battles.
It is a domestic tragedy. It is a story about a failing marriage.
It's a marriage story set in a fantasy kingdom.
Yeah.
So, okay, set the stage for it. Who are these people?
We are in Númenor, the great island kingdom of men, thousands of years before Aragorn or Frodo were even a glimmer in anyone's eye. And we have Aldarion. He's the crown prince. He's going to be the king.
Okay.
But his real passion isn't ruling, it's the sea. He's an explorer, he builds these massive ships, he's completely obsessed with sailing back to Middle-earth to see what's out there.
And then we have Erendis.
And then we have Erendis. She is a woman of the land, she loves the forests of Númenor, she loves stability, she loves home, she falls in love with Aldarion, but she hates the sea.
She sees it as a rival.
Absolutely, she views the ocean as his rival mistress.
So the conflict here isn't good versus evil. It's lifestyle versus lifestyle.
It's priorities versus priority. And it starts out okay. You know, Aldarion marries her, but he just can't stay put.
He gets the itch.
He gets the itch. He leaves for a voyage that he says will take 2. He comes back in 4.
Oof.
Yeah. He stays for a bit, they have a child, and then he leaves again for years at a time. He is a profoundly absentee husband and father.
And Erendis doesn't just sit there pining away like some princess in a tower.
No, not at all. She grows cold. She grows bitter. She moves out of the capital city, Armanelos. She takes their daughter, Calame, and she raises her in isolation.
This is where the story gets incredibly psychological. Because usually in fantasy, the guy goes off to war or on an adventure, and the wife is just this supportive figure in the background. But here, we have a real fundamental clash. Why is Aldarion sailing? Is he just having fun? Is it just a hobby?
And that is the absolute tragedy of the story. He isn't just having fun, he is a visionary.
A visionary how?
He senses that the shadow is returning to Middle-earth. He's meeting with Gil-galad, the High King of the Elves. He's building ports. He's establishing alliances. He is, piece by piece, preparing for a war that hasn't even started.
So if you look at it from a grand historical perspective, he's a hero.
100%. If Aldarion hadn't built those ports, if he hadn't established that infrastructure, Sauron would have completely overrun the West centuries later. The faithful would have had nowhere to escape to when Númenor fell. Aldarion's work literally saves the world,
Right.
but it completely destroys his family. Erendis has this devastating line in the text where she essentially says she doesn't care about his grandson.
Wow.
She cares that he is not there. She cares that he's abandoning the people who act some theoretical danger in a foreign land.
That hits so hard. It's that classic question. Can you be a great man of history and still be a good man to your family?
And Tolkien seems to suggest that often the answer is no, and the fallout from that brutal. We see the daughter, Calame. She's raised by Erendis to hate me, and, more importantly, to fundamentally distrust men.
Generational trauma in Middle-earth. I never thought I'd say that.
It is exactly that. Erendis essentially teaches her daughter that men are only and otherwise they will just...
So what happens to Anne the Cow?
She grows up to be the first ruling queen of Númenor, but she is politically brilliant, but emotionally frozen, manipulates her suitors. She refuses to let anyone close to her. The bitterness of her parents' marriage poisons her.
It just grounds the Legendarium so much.
Yeah.
It makes Númenor feel like a real place where people had real messy problems, not just some mythical paradise that got by the gods.
Yeah. It shows the cracks in the foundation. In the Silmarillion, Númenor falls because the people became proud and listened to Sauron. Very high level and, theological.
Right.
But in Unfinished Tales, we see the rot starting early. We see the logging Aldarion cuts down huge swaths of forest to build his ships, which angers the native population. We see the neglect of family values for the sake of industry and progress. It's so much more complex.
It's messy. And that brings us to another messy, complex figure, probably the most famous elf in the entire series, Galadriel.
The latest.
Now, if you've only seen the movies, or even if you've only read The Lord of the Rings, Galadriel is, well, terrifying. She's beautiful, she's ancient, she's wise, but she feels a bit static.
Like a statue that talks.
Yeah, exactly. She feels like a goddess who has just always been there, perfect and unchanging.
But Unfinished Tales completely shatters that image. It reveals that Tolkien really, really struggled with her character.
Struggled is putting it mildly from what I've read.
Oh, yeah. The section titled The History of Galadriel and Celeborn is arguably the most contradictory part of the whole. Christopher Tolkien basically admits he had a nightmare trying to organize.
So there are different versions of her story.
There are versions where she's a heroic rebel. There are versions where she's kind of innocent and got swept up in things. There are versions where she takes a boat to Middle-earth. Versions where she crosses the grinding ice fields of the north on foot. He just never settled on one.
But through all that chaos, there is one narrative thread, one really important lore nugget that completely changes how we see her in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And that is the ban.
Yes. The ban of the Valar. This is essential context.
To break this down for it, why was the Lady of Light banned? What on earth do?
Okay, we have to go way back. First age, Galadriel was one of the Noldor, the High Elves. They lived in Valinor, the Undying Lands, with the Valar.
The gods, basically.
The gods are archangels, yeah. It was paradise.
And she wasn't happy in paradise.
She was ambitious. The texts describe her as proud. She was an athlete and a scholar. And she wanted a realm of her own, a place to make her own mark.
So when Fëanor, another high elf, led a rebellion to leave Valinor and chase down the Dark Lord Morgoth,
Galadriel joined the Exodus. She was one of the leaders of the rebellion.
she wanted power.
She wanted dominion. She wanted to be a queen in Middle-earth, free from the oversight of the gods. And because the Noldor committed some terrible acts, specifically the kinslaying, where elves killed other elves' ships, the Valar shut the door behind them. They placed a ban on all the rebels.
Like, you can go, but you can never come back.
Exactly that. You wanted Middle-earth. You're stuck. So for thousands of years, Galadriel is in exile. She lives through the horror of the First Age. She survives the sinking of an entire continent. She builds her own realm in Lothlorien in the Second and Third Age. She watches everyone else die. She has to remain. She's the last of the great Tight left.
So she's been stuck there for millennia knowing she can't go.
She is serving a sentence, a very, very...
Okay. Now, fast forward to the Fellowship of the Ring. Frodo arrives in Lothlorien. He holds out the One Ring, and he offers it to her.
This is the critical moment, the pivot point of her entire...
In the movie, she goes all, green ghost mode. She shouts, "In place of a dark lord, you would have a queen. Not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the morning and the night."
And if you don't know the history, that just looks like she's struggling with the generic temptation to be powerful. Ooh, a shiny ring. I could use this to be a big queen.
Right. It's just a test of her general goodness.
But with the context of the ban...
it's so much heavier.
It's unbelievably heavier. The ring isn't just offering her power. It's offering her the specific thing she rebelled for 7,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying, you wanted to be a queen. You wanted a realm of your own, free of the gods. Take me, and you can rule the entire world. You don't need the Valar. You don't need their forgiveness. You can be the goddess you always wanted.
It is the ultimate test of her character. It confronts her with her original sin.
Precisely. And what does she do? She refuses. She drops her arm, she seems to shrink, and she says, I passed the test.
And then she says something very
She
specific.
says, I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel.
Go into the west!
Mm-hmm.
But she's banned. She can't go.
And that is the revelation. By rejecting the ring, by rejecting the path of power and domination she craved as a youth, she finally humbles herself. She accepts that she's not a god. She accepts that she is just Galadriel. And in that one act of profound humility, the ban...
Whoa. So she isn't just saying, I'm retiring now. She knows in that moment that she has earned her pardon.
She has earned her redemption. The long exile is finally over.
That gives me chills. It completely recontextualizes the end of the movie, too.
Yeah.
When she gets on that boat at the Grey Havens, it's not just a sad goodbye.
Yeah.
It's a homecoming she's been waiting for since before the sun and moon even existed.
It adds this epic, tragic, and ultimately triumphant arc to a character who otherwise just seems like a magical quest giver. And you only get that incredible depth if you dig into these messy, contradictory notes and unfinished tales.
Okay, that's the second age. That's a lot. Let's move forward into the third age. This is the era that most listeners are going to know best, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
The War of the Ring era, yeah.
There's a story in Unfinished Tales called The Quest of Erebor. And this is one of my favorite parts of the book because it's basically a giant retcon.
It is a retroactive continuity change, yes. But it's a brilliant one. It's so elegant.
It's The Hobbit, but told from Gandalf's perspective.
And that simple shift in perspective changes the entire genre of...
Right, because The Hobbit, as a book, is a children's story. It's whimsical. You've got dwarves singing songs about washing dishes, trolls turn to stone if the sun hits them. It's an adventure.
And The Quest of Erebor transforms that whimsical adventure into a high-stakes geopolitical thriller.
Okay, explain that. Because in the book The Hobbit, Gandalf just seems to be kind of tagging along. He likes Thorin Oakenshield.
Yeah.
He wants to help these dwarves get their gold back for some reason.
In the children's book, he's a benevolent, mysterious helper. He's a plot device. But The Quest of Erebor asks the hard question, why?
Right. Why would a wizard, who we know is an incredibly powerful being, sent to fight Sauron care about Thorin Oakenshield's inheritance? Why would he waste his time on a treasure hunt?
And the answer isn't he was bored.
Oh.
The answer is fear. Gandalf was absolutely terrified.
What was he afraid of? The story is set decades before the War of the Ring.
He was looking at the map of Middle-earth. He knew Sauron was slowly returning to power, hiding in Dol Guldur as the necromancer. And Gandalf looked north. What's in
Alone.
Erebor?
And inside it, Smaug the dragon.
Exactly. A dragon, and not just a big lizard, but a wicked, intelligent, ancient monster, a living weapon of mass destruction. Gandalf had this terrible vision. He realized that if Sauron made his move, his first step would be to ally with Smaug.
Oh, wow. So if the bad guys get the dragon...
I mean, just think about the strategy for a sec. If Sauron controls the dragon, he controls the entire north. He can destroy Rivendell. He can wipe out the dwarves of the Iron Hills. He can surround Lothlorien from two sides.
So when the main war starts, Sauron can attack Gondor in the south.
And send the dragon to sweep down from the north. It's a pincer move, a strategic nightmare.
The Free Peoples would be crushed. There's no way they could fight on two fronts like that.
The war would be lost before it even began.
So the Quest of Erebor wasn't about gold at all. It was a preemptive military strike.
It was a black ops mission, a special ops mission to take a key piece of enemy artillery, the dragon off the board before the enemy.
That makes Gandalf seem so much more calculating.
Yeah.
And a little bit scary.
It does. And he couldn't just tell the White Council, hey guys, I have a bad feeling, let's go try and kill a dragon. Saruman would have laughed him out of the room. So he had to find a cover.
Enter Thorin Oakenshield and his company of dwarves.
Gandalf used Thorin's pride, his greed, and his legitimate desire for revenge as a vehicle to achieve a massive military objective. He manipulated the dwarves into doing his dirty work for him.
That is cold.
It's pragmatic. And the text reveals that Gandalf was incredibly anxious about the whole thing. He admits, I didn't know if it would work. He mentions that he had a chance meeting with Thorin on the road and just seized the opportunity on a whim.
And he's the one who insisted on Bilbo back.
He essentially bullied Thorin into taking Bilbo along.
Why Bilbo, though? Why did he insist on the Hobbit?
The text says Gandalf had a feeling, a kind of foresight. He sensed that softness and stealth were needed for this mission, not just brute warrior strength. But he admits it was a complete gamble. He says, I took a risk and it paid off.
I love that so much. In the movies, Gandalf always seems so in control. He always knows exactly what to do. But here he's sweating. He's winging it. He's making it up as he goes along.
He is playing a game of 4D chess against a god of evil, and he is using pawns, Bilbo, and the dwarves, who don't even realize they're in the game.
They think they're on a treasure hunt.
And Gandalf knows they are saving the world.
It connects The Hobbit to The Lord of the Rings in such a deeply satisfying way. It makes it all feel like one long, continuous war, not two separate stories.
It does. And speaking of Gandalf and what he actually is, we should probably talk about the mechanics of the world.
Yes, the appendices section. This is the stuff for the people who want the hard magic system explanations, the nitty-gritty details.
Right. And Unfinished Tales contains a crucial section on the Istari, the wizard.
Now, we know they aren't human. They didn't learn magic at Hogwarts or something.
Yeah, they are Mare.
Okay, define that for the listener who hasn't read the Silmarillion and has no idea what that means.
Sure. In Tolkien's cosmology, you have Eru Ilúvatar, who is basically God. Then you have the Valar, who are like the archangels or the powers of the world. And below them, you have the Maiar, who are lesser angelic spirits.
Okay.
Sauron is a Maya. The Balrog in Moria is a Maya. And Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the two blue wizards are also Maiar.
So they are angelic spirits. They are incredibly powerful.
In their true spiritual form, yes. But Unfinished Tales explains the rules of engagement. When the Valar decided to send them to Middle-earth to help fight Sauron, they placed very strict limitations on.
Why? I mean, if you have a problem like Sauron, why not send in the SWAT? Why not send Gandalf in full power mode to just blast him to pieces?
Because they had tried that before. In the First Age, the Valar went to war against Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, with their full power. And it worked. They won, but they broke the world in the process.
What do you mean, broke the world?
A whole continent sank into the ocean. Millions died in the collateral. They realized their power was too catastrophic.
Okay, so no more Godzilla versus Kong battles. The collateral damage is just too high.
Exactly. So the Valar said, this time we will send emissaries, but they must incarnated.
Incarnated meaning they have to have body.
Real flesh and blood body, and specifically the bodies of old men. This wasn't just a cost. The book explains that by being in these bodies, the wizards' full power was restricted. They could feel hunger, they could feel pain, they could feel fear.
And their memories were dimmed.
Their memory of their life in paradise, yes. They had to rely on wisdom and experience, not just divine knowledge. It's a handicap.
A safety feature.
It's a safety feature, and the prime directive was that they were forbidden from matching Sauron power for power. They were forbidden from dominating the wills of men and elves. Their job was to inspire, to advise, to counsel, to unite the free peoples so they could win the war themselves.
They were consultants.
Highly armed consultants, yes. But this context perfectly explains the tragedy of Saruman.
Saruman the White. He was the head of their order, right?
He was the chief of the Astari. Saruman didn't just wake up one day and decide to be evil. He failed his specific mission parameters. He grew
impatient with what?
Impatient with the free. He looked at men and elves and dwarves and thought, they are weak. They're disorganized. They squabble amongst themselves. They can't possibly beat Sauron.
So he decided he had to take control.
He decided he needed to control. He thought, I need to force them to be organized. I'll build my own army. He broke the prime directive. He tried to do the job the Valar specifically told him not.
He tried to achieve a good Endor, defeating Sauron by using the enemy's methods of domination and control.
And in doing so, he became a cheap imitation of the very thing he was sent to fight.
That is a much more interesting villain origin story than just he was greedy for the ring. It's an administrative failure that spirals into tyranny.
It is, and intimately connected to Saruman's fall and to another tragic figure are the Palantíri.
The Seeing Seven Stones.
The Palantíri, yes.
In the movies, these are basically just FaceTime with Sauron. You touch the crystal ball, the eye of Sauron pops up, you scream, and then you get thrown across the room.
I'm laughing. That is a fair summary of the film depiction. It's treated as a cursed object, a direct line.
But Unfinished Tales gives us the technical manual for them.
It does.
So what are they actually?
They are ancient elven technology. They were created by Fëanor, the same guy who made the Silmarils way back in Valinor. They weren't weapons. They were communication devices.
Like secure magical network.
Exactly. When the faithful Númenorians came to Middle-earth, they brought 7 of the stones with them. They put them in the major towers, Minas Tirith, Orthanc, Weathertop, and so on. And the kings used them to coordinate the realm. It was a way to see across vast distances and speak mind to mind with other users.
So they aren't inherently evil objects?
Not at all. They are neutral tools, but they are very dangerous if the network is compromised.
And the network was compromised.
Big time. Sauron captured the Ithil Stone when Minas Ithil fell and became Minas Morgul. So now, the Dark Lord has a phone on the secure line.
And this brings us to Denethor, the steward of Gondor.
One of the most maligned characters in the entire film adaptation.
Oh yeah. In the films, he's basically a villain. He eats tomatoes aggressively while his son rides to a suicide mission. He tries to burn Faramir alive. He's just mad and incompetent.
But the books, and specifically the details you get in Unfinished Tales, paint a completely different picture. Denethor was a hero. He was a man of immense willpower and intelligence.
And he was using the Palantir in Minas Tirith.
He was using it to spy on Sauron. He was trying to do his job.
He was wrestling with the Dark Lord through this stone.
For years, he was gathering intel. He was trying to anticipate Sauron's moves. And because Denethor had such a strong will, and because he had the right stone as the steward of Gondor, Sauron couldn't mind control Denethor.
So how did Sauron break him?
This is the genius and the horror of it. Since Sauron couldn't lie directly or force Denethor's mind, he used the truth. He just controlled the feed.
The feed? What do you mean?
Imagine a social media feed that only ever shows you bad. That's what Sauron. He showed Denethor the vast armies gathering in Mordor. He showed him the Corsair sailing up from the south. He showed him the burning of his land. He showed him the truth, but only part of the truth.
He blocked out anything good.
He blocked out the return of the king. He blocked out the victory at Helm's Deep. He never showed him any.
He doom-scrolled him to death.
Yes, that's the perfect modern analogy. He drove Denethor to despair by curating his reality. Look at this overwhelming force. There is no hope. You cannot possibly win. Why even fight?
That's just terrifying psychological warfare.
It is. Denethor didn't go mad because he was weak. He broke because he was fighting a mental battle against a demigod every single night for decades, and he was being fed a constant, curated narrative of inevitable death.
It makes his suicide so much more tragic. He genuinely believed he was saving his son from a worse fate because he had seen the future, but he had only seen what the enemy wanted him.
It's a powerful lesson about information. The Palantíri are dangerous not because they show lies, but because they show selective truth without context. Even Saruman, a wizard, got ensnared by the same trap. He thought he could outsmart Sauron on the network. He got caught, turned into a puppet.
It really makes the magic in Middle-earth feel so much more dangerous and subtle. It's not about fireballs and lightning bolts. It's about your mind.
The greatest battles in Tolkien are always fought in the mind and the heart.
Okay, we have covered the Second Age, the Third Age, the wizards, the tech. We have to address the elephant in the room. The First Age section of the book.
The deep end.
Our source, John Del Aros, he warns us about this. He basically says this is the big barrier to...
And he is absolutely right. It is. The first section of Unfinished Tales can be long, epic stories like of Tur and his coming to Gondolin and Narni Hen Húrin, the tale of the children of Húrin.
And these are not easy reads.
They are masterpieces. Let me be clear about that. The prose is elevated. It's almost Shakespearean, but they assume you know so much. If you just jump into these stories without knowing who Morgoth, what a Silmaril is, why the elves are living in hidden cities, or why everyone is so incredibly sad.
You'll be completely lost.
Completely and utterly lost.
It's inside baseball for elves.
That's a great way to put it. And the tone is incredibly dark. We mentioned The Hobbit is whimsical. The First Age is Greek tragedy.
Give us an example. The Children of Húrin.
Okay. Turambar, he's the protagonist. He's a great human warrior, but he is cursed by the Dark Lord, Morgoth. His entire life is a cascade of absolute disasters.
How so?
He accidentally kills his best friend. He is tricked into leading his people to ruin. He marries a woman who, and this is a major spoiler, turns out to be his long-lost sister who has amnesia.
Oh, that's Game of Thrones level dark.
It's darker. It ends with a double suicide. There's a talking sword involved.
Wait, a talking sword?
Urthang, his black sword. Turin, at the end of his rope, asks the sword to kill him, to end his misery. And the sword replies. It says, essentially, yeah, I'll drink your blood. That sounds fair. And then he falls on it.
That is heavy metal.
It is mythic, it is grand, it is operatic, but it is not fun in the traditional word.
So what's the recommendation here? If a listener buys Unfinished Tales, should they just skip this part?
I wouldn't say skip it forever. I would say don't start with it. Treat the book like a buffet. You don't have to eat the kale salad first if you don't want to.
Start with the good stuff.
Start with the Third Age. Read about Gandalf's secret mission and the Palantíri. Then go back and read the Second Age stuff about Aldarion and Galadriel.
And if you love that and you find yourself wanting to know why the world is the way it is,
then you can tackle the First Age. But maybe watch a 10-minute lore summary video on YouTube first, just to get the basics of the War of the Jewels. It will make the reading experience 100 times.
That's really good advice. Don't let the hard stuff scare you away from all the accessible stuff that's in the same book.
Exactly. The unfinished nature of the book means you can read it in any order you want. There's no law.
So let's zoom out as we wrap this up. We've dug through the workshop. We've seen the bad marriages, the anxious wizards, the doom-scrolling stewards. What does all of this add up to? Why should someone read this broken, messy book?
I think it fundamentally changes your relationship with Middle-earth from consuming a story to exploring a world.
Okay, what's the distinction there?
A story is constructed. It's neat. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The author is God, and they are in control. But when you read Unfinished Tales, with all its contradictions and its dead end, it feels like the history is real, and we just don't have all the answers.
It feels discovered rather than invented.
Precisely. The fact that Christopher Tolkien has to step in and say, we aren't sure which version of Galadriel's story is true, makes you feel like you're looking at actual historical documents. It adds texture, it adds depth, it makes the world feel lived in and truly ancient.
And it invites you to participate in a weird way. You have to decide, do you prefer the version where Galadriel was a fierce rebel or the one where she was more innocent? You kind of get to choose your own canon.
You become part of the archaeology team. And for the fan who has finished The Lord of the Rings, feels that emptiness, that post-book depression. This is the cure. It shows you that you never really hit the bottom of the well. There is always more to find.
Our source, John Delarose, was pretty emphatic about this. He actually suggested reading this book before the Silmarillion.
And I would 100% agree with that recommendation. The Silmarillion is a history book. Unfinished Tales is a collection of... The Second and Third Age sections are so much closer in tone and style to the Lord.
It's a gentler on-ramp.
It's a gentler slope than the sheer cliff face of the Silmarillion.
And for me, I think the biggest takeaway is the human element. We think of fantasy as escapism, magic, monsters, other world. But the parts of Unfinished Tales that really stick with you aren't the spells or the ancient lore.
No, not at all. It's a wife who is furious at her husband for prioritizing career over his child. It's a general sweating over a map, hoping his risky plan works. It's a leader breaking under the constant pressure of bad.
It turns out Middle-earth is just us, but with, better jewelry and much longer lifespan.
That is why it endured. It grounds the mythic in the deeply...
So here's the final verdict. If you see that dusty copy of Unfinished Tales in a used bookstore, or if you want to treat yourself to that leather-bound Easton Press edition for the full gravitas, don't be scared of the title.
The fact that it's unfinished is the best part. It's a feature, not a bug.
Unlock the workshop. Look at the sketch. See the rough draft. It might just change the way you see the finished masterpiece forever.
Keep digging. There's always more gold.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next expedition.